Greetings, I'm Mark, and as you know, I love coding. Sorry I haven't posted in a bit. I got sick, wasn't COVID. I think it's that thing they call the flu. Much better now. What I want to do today is I want to continue where we left off. What I had done in the past video, as you can see from right up here, that we basically wrote an app to be able to resize the window and resize the object and positioning. Everything remains the same aspect ratio wise. Okay. Now what I want to show you, as you can see over here on this part of the screen, what you can see over here is yeah, the fingers. I have the processing Android emulator up, and so what I'm going to show you today is more or less doing the same thing we did in processing Java mode, but in Android mode. How when you actually flip, let me do it now for you. When you flip your image or your phone, you want obviously everything to be right where it's supposed to be. You want everything to be the same, whether it's in portrait mode or landscape mode. And I'm going to show you that, as well as one other trick that if you're new to Android, you'll come across this, and some people find it acceptable. I did not, and so I'm going to show you. And so let us get started. I'm going to minimize this window. I'm going to stop that because we're not going to be using it right now. And I'm going to bring up what we'd been working on previous. As you can see, this is the same code. If you've been following us, or me, if you've been following me, you know where we left off. Otherwise, I will post a link to the code on GitHub below so you can take up where I left off. We're not going to write the whole thing over again. All right. And so when you want to convert to Android mode, first thing you need to do is go into your little upper right corner here in your sketch window, and if you have downloaded it already, you want to select Android mode. If you haven't downloaded it, you go to add Android mode. I'm not online, so I'm getting this error, but you can see that I've already added it, and you can add the other modes that are available as well. So for me right now, we're going to just, since I've already added it, we're going to change it to Android mode. Let's get this over here. Get the screen bigger. Okay, right away you see there's some errors, and we're going to take care of those immediately. But before we do that, we want to resave this sketch. Save as. We're just going to save it as Android. Flip image Android. All right. Now, first thing we need to do is just delete this. The other thing that's not going to work, really, I mean, it does, but it doesn't, is size. That will create a sketch window size, and if it just so happens to match the resolution of your phone, you might not see a difference. But in this case, we're going to just remove it. Now, you can put in, for Android mode, full, let me see, what is that, screen. But it is absolutely unnecessary. It will default to full screen, and you'll see that. Now, everything else, we pretty much will remain mostly the same. The flipping and all that stuff. Now, right away, we can try to run this. I honestly, let's save it. let's see what we get. You just never know, right? We could get errors, we could get something, run an emulator. You can also use Control Shift R to do it. So we have our hand moving, but what happens when we flip the mode? It's absolutely not correct. And so we're going to work on that right now. Okay. One of the first things we want to do is we've got to change some things in our init file. And we don't any longer need the D width and the D height, what we defined in here. And so honestly, we can actually just remove it. But what we want to do is replace it with something, because we need to basically test whether there has been a shift. There's many different ways you can do that. What we're going to do is we are going to create a variable for previous width, and if that changes, that means the screen has changed orientation. We're going to do a re-init. And to do that, first off, let's just change this one to prev prev width, and we do not need the D height anymore. And I'm going to Control save it. Now if we ran this, we would get some errors. As you can see here, we have a whole bunch of errors. We're going to do a lot of changing here. The first thing we want to do is, if width does not equal, we want to call it a previous width. Then we know that there's been a change. We don't need this part of it, so we're going to delete that. Now it's all about the previous width and height. Now, if there's a change, what we want to do is we want to save the current width to previous width. That way next time it flips, we can change that. So we're going to do prev width equals width. Did I do that right? Oh, forgot the V here. Prev width equals width. That saves it. Now what we want to do is, depending upon whether it's in portrait mode or landscape mode, we have different things that are going to happen. And so first we need to test for that. Let's just take away this thing. These aren't necessary either. Okay, the first thing we want to do here is check to see. First thing I want to do is I want to use the if statement and see if it's actually in landscape mode, which could mean the width is larger than the height. Oops, geez, oh Pete. And if it's that, then we want to do some things. And let me see, this is pretty much what we want to do actually, but let's do that. Now, everything is pretty much the same. What we're doing here is we're first checking to see if the width, I like to indent these, if the width is greater than the height, if the width is greater than the height, we're going to run these numbers, which are all based on the width. As you recall last time, we got the aspect ratio of our image. And what I kind of want to do with that is I want to do that again, but I think we're going to do it elsewhere in this. I'm going to cut this. And I want to put it back up here. And I want to do it right in the beginning here. And so after we obtain our image from the load, we want to grab the aspect ratio, and we're going to store it in that AR value, which stands for aspect ratio. Okay, let me save this before I go further. I'm going to do a lot of saving in this. So pretty much everything is the same throughout. And as you can see, the resizing and all that. So the next thing we want to do is what happens if it's in portrait mode, which would mean the width actually is smaller, less than the height in pixel. And so we're going to put an else statement here. Else. Now, some people like to put their curly braces down an extra notch. I kind of like to keep them on the same line here, because if I want to remove it or say comment it out, it's just one line. And if I comment this out, this is the same as if I, well, you can see what it's the same as. And looking at this code, there's only one thing that we really have to change. One thing. And that has to do with this right here. This. To keep everything the same, where we define h, which would mean height, is of the image, is the height divided by 4. Now, what happens when you rotate? What happens when you rotate an image or your phone? When you phone in portrait mode, your width is let me have visual aid here. When you're holding your phone, your width is narrower than your height. And what we've decided here, or what I've decided in the previous one, is to base the height of the image based on the height of the phone, dividing it by 4. When I turn my phone, I kind of want to use the same thing, the same number, to get the same exact number. I want you, but to do that, now it is the width. And so the only thing that's going to change in this whole thing is actually right here. And we can just retype this. Let's just copy this. And let me put this visual aid down. We're going to copy this, put it here, because that's the only thing that really changes. Paste. And then all these things here, let me Control X this. And what we want to do is Control paste that. And then kind of want to actually just take all these, because all these numbers are basically the same. Control X, paste. See, they're all the same, and the only thing we really need to change to make this work is this right here. Now let's save it and see if we get any errors. I'm going to run this again, and let's just see how it plays out. Run an emulator. Now, as you can see, our little fingers going back and forth, as we would expect. And if we click it, we still get our little reversal. But now we're going to flip it. And flip it this way. Here we go. It does the same thing what we needed to do. And then we're going to flip it back. Okay. That's pretty much it. But is it? What I was talking about earlier at the beginning of this session here was when you tilt your phone or change from portrait to landscape. When you write an Android app, what happens is the default is the Android app actually likes to start over again. And to prove to you that, we're going to add a little bit more code just to fancy this up a bit before we solve that issue. Okay, one of the first things I want to do is I want to make another variable, and I'm going to make it a Boolean variable. And you know, Boolean variables can only be true or false, a 1 or a 0. And so, oops, what I want to do is say Boolean, and we're just going to say start, like, because what I want to do is I want to have a start screen for this to make a point. And this is the only way I can think of actually to make the point easily. So we're going to say Boolean start. Now here we can define it here, or we can go down into setup and define it the rest of the way, but it's kind of, we're just going to default it because we can, and we're going to default it as false. Okay, so when this, now that we're putting it on our phone, we can call it an app, right? When this app starts, start is false, and we're going to save that. The next thing we want to do is to create down here in draw. This is the whole thing in a nutshell right here. After init, what I want to do is I want to say if it started, if start, which means if start is true, then do all this stuff here. What we want to do is close this down and do that. Now, if it started, do this. But what if it hasn't started? Well, what we want to do here is create an alternative. And so, if it hasn't started, we're going to say else, this, and this, and then I'm going to just write this out real quick. We're going to just create a text. Oops, a text. And we're going to say, let's, with this text, we're going to say, tap to start or return here. And so I'm saying tap instead of click, which, because it's a phone interface, it's a device. And oops, now to finish this we need to tell it where. I'm going to just center this. Width divided by 2, comma, height divided by 2. Let's widen this a little bit more here. Oh. Okay, make sure you, typos are the #1 error creating you'll ever see. That's the one that's gonna plague you. Unfortunately, the interfaces are very agreeable and kind of let you know that you've made an error in spelling sometimes. Later on, we're going to go into Android Studio. I'm going to show you how to port over into Android Studio, which at this point in time, I believe is the only way you can really publish an app on the Google Play Store. It's a new thing, from what I understand. So, right now, let's save this. All right, now, if we were to run this, we will get our title screen. Of course, it's not going to be right because what we haven't done here is set up the text size, proper text position. We're going to do that over here in setup. You know what I'm going to do here? I don't think we need this. It's kind of redundant. We have it down here. Okay, now here in setup, what I'm going to do is we have image mode, center. You've heard of that. Now I'm going to show you what the text equivalent to that. The text equivalent to that is text align. Now, what that allows you to do also is, like a default, when you write a text, it starts in the upper left corner of the text. What we're going to do, we're going to put it to the center of the text, so when we tell it to center in the screen, our text is centered in the screen. And if you expand this text, it expands outward in both directions from the center of the screen. And so we're going to say center, comma, center in all caps. Now, we run that, we are going to get our text in the center of the screen. But what we don't get is a text size. Now, I can declare that here, but let's just do that just for I can just show you more as to what we're looking at here. We want to say text size. Text size. And we're going to base this on the width of the screen. Width of the screen. And we're going to divide it by, let's say, 20. An arbitrary number. You might find you change this based on your emulator or the device that you're using it on. I like to use basing it on the width because it's kind of universal. Doesn't matter if it's a high definition display or very low, which our emulator is at 800 by 480. Don't ask me why these are like this. I don't know. And maybe if some of you do know, maybe comment below. Okay, so here we're going to save this. Control save it. Now we're going to run it in the emulator. Control Shift R runs it in the emulator. And there it is. Now, right now, we can tap it. It doesn't do anything. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to take this out of here. And I'm going to say Control X, which will cut it. And I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to put it in the if something's changed, right? We've done all this. Let's paste this as well and reset the size each time it rotates. Let's see what happens now. Control save, Control Shift run, or R. All right. Now let's get this thing functioning. All right, so now let's get this tap to function, which we're just gonna kind of go down here and we're gonna wipe this out. The ability to click on the screen and make that object reverse no longer necessary. And so what we want to do is make it so if you touch the screen, it goes into it, but we also want to make it when you touch the screen that it goes back to our start screen. How are we going to do that? I'll show you first the long way. And you say, what? There's another way? Well, yeah, I'm going to show you the long way. Most of you might just write, if, let's say, not started. If not started, then you want to tell it to, you want to say start would be true, right? So start equals true. And then when you click it, now start is true. But say it's already true. Then we want to say else. And you're probably going to hate me for doing this, but I'm going to show you in a minute. Why didn't I show it to you first? Because I have to make a point. Okay, so else we want to say start equals false. All right, let's save it. Let's run it. And you should see it working fine now. Starts, stops. Now this is, this here took us 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code. What if there was an easier way? Well, there really is, and you're gonna love it. Let's just delete all this because it's unnecessary. And some people might already know this trick. I actually learned this. I learned this from Android Studio, which I'll show you later on when we port things over to Android Studio. It kind of likes to recommend corrections. And when it was recommending this over that long statement, even though it still worked, I was kind of surprised. I'm like, does this really work? And if so, is it only exclusive to Android Studio, or will it work in processing? Well, I tried it in processing, and it does work. And so you might find that you've done this a lot over a period of time. Now you can see it still works. So a nice little trick that I learned from Android Studio. And so later on when we do try porting stuff over to Android Studio, it will make a lot of recommendations. I suggest you try them out. It might alter your code greatly, but you'll find they also work without you trying them out. So what's our next thing? Well, we wanted to see something. I wanted to show you something about why I put this start menu and what you're going to see. So here we are. Our app is started. It's moving. We're going to rotate it back. It starts over. Resets. How do we fix that? Well, let me show you. It has to do with your manifest file. Let's open the sketch folder, and you can see our code here. You can see, since it's in Android mode, it creates a manifest, Android manifest .xml. Now we're going to open this. Let me see. I recommend, it's free, edit with Notepad++, but you can still use regular everyday Notepad. And we have to edit this. Now, when I'm working with the manifest file, it is a conglomerate of run-on lines, run-on code. And so what I like to do for definability is everywhere where it starts with the word Android, I like to drop it to the next line, just to help me figure it out. And so here, I'm going to bring this down a line. As it continues, let me see, I'm trying to make this a little more readable and definable. I kind of like to hear application heading. Under that's basically the name of the MIP map IC launcher. Over here again, Android enable. Now, okay, and so what we want to do to make this adjustment so our window, doesn't restart, your app doesn't restart every time you rotate your phone. I'm going to do it right here in activity. Now, let me drop this down a line, and one more line. Now these, as you can see, they have one thing in common. They use the word Android in the beginning, so I'm just going to copy this. Copy that. Paste it. And we want to do something that is called, without any space, configuration. Or no, I'm sorry. Wow, where am I? We want to do this change called config changes equal. Now under this there's a lot of things. You can look it up in Google Docs, but we're not going to do that. Trust me, this is what you need to do to make this work. Orientation. Orientation. Now here's this little toothpick thingy that I still don't know, bar, whatever, I'm not sure what it's called. And then screen size. Orientation screen size. As you can see that we've written this out right here. Basically all you need to do, let's save this and let's save it and see if it works, you know, that's all you can do. Control save. I'm gonna just minimize that. We're gonna restart the app. We got an error. Typo. Jeez. They'll get you every freaking time. Control save, minimize, run an emulator. I think we've got it this time. Hopefully. When this happens, which it does now and then, first thing I would recommend is to go into Android and go down to here on your menu bar and reset the ABD or ADB, and then try to run it again. Let's see what happens. There we go. Now if we click it, our click just sends us back here, back and forth, back and forth. Let me see which is the correct rotation. Let's rotate again and see what happens. Backwards. And then rotate back up. And then you can tell that it's not restarting, but we do have an error. And this would be right in here. What I'd forgotten to do is each time through, when the orientations change, reset S equal to 1. And S was our scaling factor, if you remember previously. Let me control save this. Let me run the sketch again. Run an emulator. Start. Back and forth. Let's go into landscape mode, and it changes without restarting the app. And this is basically what you want. That's it. So later on, we're going to work a little bit more with Android. I still have a few more things I want to show you in the Java before we're going to kind of bounce back and forth, and so you can get the hang of it. And a lot of stuff that I code, I first might start it in Java before I turn it over to Android, because most of the logic is actually the same, and a lot of the code is the same. So I hope that you like this. I hope you got a lot out of it. Um, I know when I first started writing my apps, I was like, wow, is this acceptable? First it was, but then the more I looked at my own apps, I was, no, this isn't acceptable. I want, when you rotate your aspect ratio and change it, from portrait to landscape, I really need to see my app continue and not restart. So for now, that's it. Um, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. Again, I'm going to post this code on GitHub so you can copy it. I'm sure it wasn't too hard to follow along either. Remember, always try to be happy and always try to be good to each other. Thank you.